What if I told you the entire world, every single country is in debt? Not just a little, but trillions and trillions of dollars. America alone owes more than 38 trillion. Europe owes over 14 trillion. Japan owes about 9 trillion. And when you add up all the debts of every nation, you get a number so massive, it's nearly 3 times the size of the entire global economy. But here's the real puzzle. If every country owes money, then who is the creditor? Where does all that money actually come from? And how does the system keep running without collapsing? Today, we're going to unravel the truth behind global debt. Part 1. What is national debt? When a government spends more than it collects in taxes, it borrows the difference. That borrowed money becomes national debt. Most countries borrow by issuing government bonds. These are promises to pay back money with interest. Investors buy these bonds because they're considered safe. Now imagine this on a global scale. Everyone is borrowing, and everyone is lending at the same time. The key question is, who exactly is holding all of these debts? Sovereign bonds, the building blocks of debt. Governments don't borrow by going to a giant global bank. They issue sovereign bonds, debt securities that investors purchase. These buyers include commercial banks, pension funds, insurance companies, investment funds, ordinary people saving for retirement, and yes, even other governments. This is how debt gets distributed throughout the financial system. In fact, in the case of the United States, a large portion of U.S. debt is owned by Americans themselves through banks, retirement accounts, and financial institutions. Once we understand bonds, the global picture becomes clearer. Countries borrow by selling bonds, and both domestic and foreign investors buy them. So the United States owes money to Americans, foreign governments, international investment funds, and at the same time, other countries owe money too, sometimes even to the United States. This creates a giant interconnected web where every nation is both a borrower and a creditor in some form. So the question isn't who holds all the debt. It's how is this massive network of loans sustained? Here's the surprising thing. Government debt isn't usually paid off in the traditional sense. Instead, most countries refinance old debt by issuing new debt, a process known as rolling over debt. That means as governments issue new bonds to pay back maturing bonds. So you never actually clear the debt, you just keep it cycling. This is one of the reasons giant economies like the US and Europe can maintain such huge levels of debt. They don't try to erase it entirely. Debt might sound scary, but it's actually foundational to how modern economies function. When a government borrows and spends, money flows into the economy. People get jobs, businesses grow, and consumers spend. This stimulates economic activity and growth. Without this cycle of borrowing, economies could stagnate, growth slows, unemployment rises, and investments dry up. Debt, in that sense, fuels economic progress. Now, let's answer the real question. If everyone owes money, who actually gets paid? The surprising truth is, no single country or entity holds all the debt. Instead, creditors are a mix of market investors, foreign governments, banks, pension and insurance funds, everyday citizens who hold government bonds, central banks that support financial stability globally. In essence, much of the world's debt is owned by us through our savings, financial systems, and we are both debtors and creditors, depending on the perspective. Finally, here's an important reality. Most governments don't intend to pay off their debt completely, and they rarely try. Instead, they manage it rolling it over, refinancing, and using monetary policy to keep confidence high. If a country ever tried to pay off all its debt at once, it could shrink the money supply and trigger a recession, or worse. That's why debt isn't a burden, it's an engine of modern finance.
Who made that?
Now, this is where central banks enter the scene. The Federal Reserve in the USA, the ECB in Europe, the Bank of Japan, These institutions are not like normal banks. Central banks can create money. When the economy slows down, central banks buy government bonds. This gives governments cheap money and prevents the system from collapsing. This process is called quantitative easing. In simple words, government issues debt. Central bank buys it, money enters the system. The economy keeps running. So is money created out of thin air? Short answer: yes. Long answer: money is not a physical object. Money is a belief system. As long as people trust the government, accept the currency, believe in the system, the debt-based system continues to work. That's why when trust collapses like in Zimbabwe or Venezuela, money turns into nothing more than paper. The real foundation of debt is trust, not gold. Now the big question: if debt is normal, why do some countries collapse? The answer is currency power. America issues its debt in US dollars, the world's reserve currency. But developing countries borrow in dollars, earn in their weak local currency. The moment their currency falls, their debt burden doubles. So yes, everyone has debt, but the pain is not equal for everyone. When a country faces an extreme crisis, it goes to the IMF or the World Bank. They give loans, but they also give conditions. Subsidies must be reduced, taxes must be increased, public spending must be cut. This brings short-term stability, but in the long run, ordinary people suffer. So debt is not just an economic tool, it is also a weapon of power. The truth is, the global debt system is fragile, but not weak. It survives as long as people trust currencies, governments avoid default, central banks keep supporting. A crash happens when confidence collapses, like during the 2008 financial crisis. Debt numbers are dangerous, but fear is even more dangerous. The biggest lie we are told is government debt is a threat to your future. Reality: debt becomes a problem when money is not used productively, corruption exists, economic growth stops. But if debt is used for infrastructure, education, economic growth, then debt is not a burden. It is an investment. So here is the final answer. If every country is in debt, the creditor is not one single country. The real creditors are banks, pension funds, insurance companies, central banks, governments, and indirectly, us. Your savings, provident fund, and pension are invested somewhere in government bonds. That means we are inside the system, lending money to each other. So the next time you hear the country is drowning in debt, remember this: debt is not just a number. Debt is a system, and that system runs on trust. The real question is not how much debt exists. The real question is, do we understand the system? Or are we simply trapped inside it? If this video helped you understand the system, like the video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to the channel for more deep, honest explanations of how the world really works.